Hi, this is Bob Samuels from TechConnectr, and it's a pleasure to connect with Tamsen, excuse me, Tamsen Webster. How are you today, Tamsen?
I'm doing all right. Things are unusual these days, but doing pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah, let's give a little background on what today's like. So today is Wednesday, March 25th. I'm in California. We've been in official coronavirus lockdown for, I think, a couple weeks or so, but unofficial, probably 3 or 4 weeks. Everybody's got their own situation. It's a worldwide thing, which is absolutely, it's unique in our lifetime. So Tamsin, how are you doing at this moment?
Well, it is. We're in similar situations. So the governor of Massachusetts has issued a stay-at-home request. Massachusetts, being Massachusetts, didn't want to. Yeah, exactly. It's a strong suggestion. Exactly. And we'll see how it's going. I mean, we're in the middle, definitely, of a big spike. It's getting bigger. The huge spike that's happening in New York City right now is a bit worrisome, just given the proximity and how much traffic, human traffic, goes back and forth between Boston and New York. So I have a feeling there's a lot more of it present here in Boston than we're aware of. So,
yeah,
but it's been pretty grim here.
You probably hate the Yankees. You probably have friends and.
Nah, I'm a baseball fan, and the Yankees are always a reliably great team, even if they're official rivals of the Red Sox. But
what a good attitude.
That works out. Yeah.
So let's talk. Maybe we can talk a little bit about both, but I want to talk about your marketing wisdom and then maybe tie it into what's going on around us now. So if you can give a little bit of your background about what you've been doing the past few years.
Sure. Well, I help businesses and organizations tell the story of what they do, and so that they can drive action from it. That sounds like that most people would have that figured out already. But when I talk with organizations and even individuals, a lot of times they are focusing on how to explain what they do, and rather than how to make the case for what they do. And the key, though, is that unless somebody really understands and agrees with what you're talking about, they're really not interested in learning more. So what I help companies do is figure out how to build the story about their companies, their products, their services that their audiences will tell themselves. And that I found has been a very powerful way for businesses and organizations to get their ideas out and spreading in the marketplace.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And as far as the story goes, I always do have to be stopped to think about what to talk about, because people want to sell themselves, but really they're not. It's not important what you're selling, but it becomes the not the what or the how, but the why.
Well, to some extent it did. I mean, I differ from Simon Sinek a little bit on this one, because, everyone's like, and to some extent he says that, what he says that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I don't 100% agree. I think people, they do buy what you do because, Apple is great, but unless you're actually like in need of something, unless you're in need of the services that an iPad or a ridiculously expensive phone provides, you're not going to say, hey, I need more innovation today. What product can I buy? Which, if you took Simon's statement to its illogical extreme, that's essentially what it would be saying, which of course isn't true. But what is true about what Simon says is that people will use your why, whatever it is, to justify whatever decision that they have made. So you have decided to buy that super expensive premium iPhone or that latest MacBook or iPad Pro that just got released or whatever, but you use the why, whether it's the one they supplied or not, to justify to yourself that was the right decision.
That's funny. Or to your spouse or to your boss or whatever, but help you justify it. That crazy.
Precisely. So
crazy. That's beautiful. That's well said.
Yeah. So, and that's why I say that it's so important to not figure out the story that you want to tell, but you have to figure out the story that people will tell themselves. And it's not only what they will tell themselves internally, but as you just pointed out, the story that will actually work when they try to tell it to somebody else. And to me, that's the key of marketing. It's not just, hey, did we convince that one person? But I mean, how often
when you're
Exactly. And if you think about just particularly how B2B marketing works, you never have one conversation. There's never one conversation where you have just a slam dunk phone call and like you sign them up for that multi-million-dollar, super complicated project and service that you provide. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So you've got
So
these
your job is
complicated,
your job is to make them a champion or make them a stronger champion for you.
yeah, but not it, and I think even then we need to flip that script a little bit more. We need them to be, we need to figure out how we can be their champion. And that's why I think it's so important to think about not just, hey, how can they sell us? It's how can they sell their own company and their own value to the company where we happen to be a tool for doing that.
Part of that solution.
Yeah, because it's so important, particularly when you are talking about complicated products and services, over extended life cycles, that you have ways to be able to, that you give the people that you're talking to ways that they can talk about what you do to other people without having to say, well, just, hey, look at this deck, because nobody's going to go, hey, look at this deck. Like most decks are not written, by the way, in a way to be able to actually do that anyway. So yeah, I just find that that's a really interesting, I have found that to be a useful frame on it. Go ahead.
I was going to say that one of the things that you're pointing out clearly to me is that it's important to find out what's important to them. So you could
100%.
That
yes, yeah.
If you could be part of that, then you win. If you try to make your own category or whatever for them to be interested in, they're not necessarily interested in that. But if you could hook into
that's right.
what's important to them, there's your ship. There's your rocket ship.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So it really does, in my mind, kind of turn the why versus what on its head. I mean, you have to sell to their why, not yours.
And it's their what.
And their what, exactly? Because unless they're looking for,
you're part of their how.
Correct. That's right. Yeah, because you have to think, and that's the thing I see, in all the years, I spent 20 years in brand and message strategy at this point. And I'd say that is the fundamental shift that has still not happened
like that.
across
you're not
the industry.
but you're part of their how potential.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, whatever we do in our own businesses is like 100% of what we do, right? But whatever we're selling is like a teeny, teeny, tiny part of what they do.
But we all think we're important.
They don't think we're important. The only reason why we're important is we're not. Yes, we think we're the most important, right?
What do they
the only
know?
thing, well, they know a lot, and that's the thing. So I can happily get on a soapbox about this too, where there's a lot of advice out there about how you should be the guide, that they're the hero of the journey. 100% agree with that. But the fact, the minute you start putting yourself as the guide of like, oh, hey, we know more about this than you. I'm like, no. You may know more about the thing that you do than that
little thing,
but
a guide at best.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody knows their business better than they do. And the minute that you even start to make them feel that way, then they're going to just resist every part of it. So I just, particularly in these times, the more that we can help people feel strong in their decisions, how the more that we can help them feel, as I like to put it, smart, capable, and good, and that we're looking at as much as we can from their perspective as smart, capable, and good people. Why would our thing make sense to them based on how they see the world right now and how they look at the world right now? Why would it make sense to them? That to me is a fun puzzle, but once solved, it is extraordinarily powerful.
Yeah. So there are some companies that they're rigid by definition. They're whatever, they're a widget. But there's other companies which are maybe service more related, where they could be more flexible and they can align with the client's needs maybe more potentially. The ones that are rigid, it's just a what's a perception thing. It's a branding thing.
Well, tell me more about that. Yeah, I'm curious about that because I'd love to give me an example of a company that you would consider to be rigid in that way.
Well, I mean, if you buy an Apple Watch, it's an Apple Watch. They're not going to customize it for you.
Oh no,
so
right?
It has to fit
exactly.
your need. But if I'm selling my thing, like I have, what I sell is potentially it's customizable to different people. Sometimes sometimes I can fit people's needs for recommendations of solution providers. And other times I can help them with their communications or their strategies. But there's different things that so when I'm talking to someone and finding out what's important to them, I can change what I offer to them to accommodate that. Apple can't do that. Apple can give them the watch, that's it.
True.
That was just my example of the difference.
Well, I mean, if you
And
look at it,
you're flexible. So, you're by definition, you're a custom solution, right?
Essentially, yes. I mean, if my good friend of mine, Ian Altman, gave me a great reminder about this the other day, because he wrote a book called Same Side Selling. He's just a wonderful human, but B, a fantastic resource and
good plug. We'll put a link in
on,
for him.
On sales. Yeah. And he talks about how it's important to talk about results and not resources when you're talking to potential clients. And I think that's true for both B2B and B2C. So we think about it this way, like the resource, like I have, is my method, right? My red thread method, or for Apple, it's the watch, or for you, it's the platform or the nature of your service. But the results can be and should be very different for each person that you're talking to. And so what's interesting when you've got, with what you and I do, or even I would say what a lot of kind of, ABM shops from a B2B standpoint, they really have an opportunity to tailor how they talk about their resources, to actually subsume that and to say, well, here's how it delivers on something that you are actively looking for right now. The thing with Apple is that people kind of, Apple is such a big brand, and it represents so much that people find within that brand and within that Apple Watch whatever they want for it, and that's where all the
stories to be able to sell. Absolutely,
yeah, because it's like depending on what aspect of the watch they highlight, either in store or in ads or whatever, then different people are going to draw to it. So you're going to get athletes who are going to look at it and go, oh, I can track my run on this watch, or you get social butterflies. You're like, oh, I can stay connected. And then you get all your techie people who just want to be at the front edge, or they just want to like live their Star Trek fantasy of like talking into their watch phone. But people find what they want to in your product, and for me, that's the key to great marketing, is that make that path to what they want to find in your product easy. But most of the time, what we end up doing is trying to say, well, you should want this in our product, rather than what do they already want right now, and how can we help them see that exists in what we've got?
Right. Nice distinction. So tell us a bit about the red thread method.
Sure. So speaking of resources, it's, of course, this is like a trap after I've just said, well, it's better for me to talk about results. So based on what we've talked about so far, what I'd say the red thread method, what the red thread is itself, it takes its name from a kind of Swedish, Nordic, Scandinavian, German concept that really refers to the through line of something, something that makes things make sense. They use it in context of saying, well, what's the red thread of this idea? Or, our red thread as a company is challenging innovation, challenging the status quo. The thing is, we as humans actually need to find that red thread in any idea, any message, any communication, because that's the thing that helps it make sense to us. And so
it's an underlying theme, and underlying value, and underlying.
I mean, philosophically, yes. Practically, what it is, it is the mental connection that someone has to make between a question that they currently have and the answer that your product or service represents. Mm-hmm. So it is that connection, because if someone says, hey, I need to solve this problem, let's say it's, if it's, so what's one of the problems that you solve for your clients, Bob?
Well, I'd like to talk about this coronavirus situation now and see how that could fit in. So for instance, so what are companies doing now to follow their red thread during this time? What are some examples that you've helped people through, or you're talking to people and that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, I think the impact of the coronavirus on what we're talking about is the way that I look at it is that you've got a lot of folks that are right now in the very moment that we're in everybody's, you know, at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, businesses included. They're trying to figure out how do we keep people employed? How do we keep the lights on? It is very much all about safety, security, and shelter right now. And so, you know, once we have enough information to understand how that's going to play out, and businesses are able to say, okay, now we're in a position where we need to make sure that people know that we're still out there, that we can be helpful. Just as you're thinking, Bob, in the context of your clients, how can you be helpful to them?
Right.
The challenge I see is that there's going to be a lot of people in that mode of let people know what we do all at the same time. And it's going to be like Lord of the Flies for messaging, I think, out there. And so to me, if I look at the situation, it means that it's a great time to pressure test, what I call pressure test your message. Make sure that it is going to be clear enough, strong enough, differentiated enough, so that when everybody comes out, it's probably all at the same time saying, hey, hire me. Don't forget we're out here, buy our product, that you are laser focused, and then your message and that what you say about yourself comes through clear as a bell. And to me, that's what the red thread helps people do, because it basically helps you tune your message, tune the frequency of your message to something that your prospective audience is asking right now, which is why I was asking you the question, Bob, of what problems you solve for your customers right now. Because if you can say, hey, you know, if I'm dealing with so right now, for instance, my clients are the ones that are choosing to invest right now are those that are figuring out, that have seen this coming. They're saying, this is the time we need to make sure that when this competition for attention happens, we've got a message that really is super solid, is rock solid. And so the connection that I would make from a red thread is people are saying, how can we make sure that our message will survive in that kind of crowded message marketplace whenever everything opens back up again? And I can say, well, the best way to make sure your message stands out is to make sure it's a story, it's a message that people will tell themselves about your product, and explain how that happens. But that connection between, how do I make that connection? Between finding that question that somebody's asking and being able to build a message that says, okay, well, when people are trying to figure out how to make their message stand out, a lot of times they're focused on what they want to say more than on what people need to hear. And yet it's because this decision happens in their head, we need to make sure that whatever we're giving to them is a story that they're going to tell themselves. It's a story that satisfies what they need to hear in order to understand, agree, and act on your message. So that's what I help people do.
Beautiful.
So,
and the story of what they need to hear now is more aligned with Maslow's law, you know, those lower lung things. And if you can help them with those, then change the message, or at least focus on that to help them get through this. Otherwise, you know, our thoughts are with you, and we'll talk to you later and let us know if we can help.
Exactly. I mean, to me, the focus right now is, if you've got folks that are actively your clients right now, the message should be, listen, we're not going to do anything that makes you go out of business. Well, right, in order to keep us in business. So it should, to me, the messaging should be around safety, security, and stability, not in how you can provide it, but how you can just that you're not adding to it for them, right? So just
Rest
simple
assured,
things like
we're
payment
not going
plans.
where we have things in control.
Exactly. Suspending, but more specifically, how can you help them? Saying, if you need help right now, if you need to delay payment, or if you need to suspend it for a little, that's fine. We're sure, we know we'll make it out. I had a conversation yesterday with a woman who operates as I call her, my fractional CFO. And she had this beautiful metaphor for kind of resources and finances right now that I thought was great. She said, a lot of times people think of money and resources as pie, right? It's a finite thing, and everybody's trying to get, their piece of the pie. And in that environment, it's tempting to say, how can I, where can I find the opportunities to sell? And I'm not going to do anything for free and all of that kind of stuff. And she said, her perspective was that she saw finances as a flame. And I was like, oh, that sounds super interesting. What do you mean by that? She said, well, if you think about
a plate versus a pie. Okay.
Well, it's a flame, like a candle flame. Yeah. Flame. And the way that she described it is so imagine, if you've got a candle, right? You've got a flame on the end of your candle. And if you light somebody else's candle with your candle, you still have that flame. You still have a flame, but now they have a flame too. And she said, in her perspective, this is how the economy works, is that if I can continue to, let's say, pay my business manager, and then she can pay, the companies that she's working for, and they can continue to be like, eventually it comes back, as long as that we're continuing to share that flame.
I like
and to
that.
me, that's,
like
isn't that great? I love that.
It's additive.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not only is it, you have it, therefore I don't. It's like, no, we both do. It's an and, it's not an or.
Correct. Yes. And to me, I think that's a great perspective to take right now in this moment, even to your messaging. This isn't just, hey, how can you help me? It is really, I've got something that I think could be helpful for you. I'm just going to put it out there, whether, and to whatever extent that,
if I take two flames and put them together, I get a bigger flame than either one of those.
That's right. That's right. So I just love that mental image. And I think it was a great kind of human regrounding of everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, I think it's well said. So, and we'll get through it, I guess, is the other piece.
That's right. I mean, it was, again, just to kind of, props to her. Her name is Wendy Hall at Small Office Solutions out of Minnesota. But, she was just, I just love that feeling of it, because she's just like, listen, if this is something that feels right to you, then if this agrees, essentially what she's saying was a very red thread approach, which is, I had a question, what should I be doing with my cash flow right now? Should I be constricting it? Should I be doing should I be trying to find, because I said to her, I don't love how I'm seeing certain people kind of try to capitalize on this moment. I see people selling into this moment, and I'm just like, that's not me. So do I need to not spend, if I'm not actively trying to capitalize, do I need to not spend? So that's my question. Right. And then she created this beautiful paradigm. She's like, well, we can look at it as a pie, or we can look at it as a flame. And that
what was her name again? And we'll put a link to her too.
Wendy with an I, Wendi Hall. And the website is sosllc.com.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
And she presented me with kind of a current paradigm that was consistent with how I was looking at the situation, the pie, presented me with an alternate paradigm, the flame. And then essentially kind of cemented that and say, listen, if that paradigm of, if you agree that's true, that when you share a flame, both people keep the flame, then therefore, this is not a time to stop spending. This is not a time to
cut back.
It's not a time to cut back. It may not be a time to expend any more, but it's not a time to stop, because she's like, if you don't, if you were to, lay somebody off or do she's like, then you're stopping the flame for them. And I was like, that's not who I am. And so to me, that's actually really very much what the red thread does. It frames a new behavior within somebody's current worldview. Right. So she started with a question I had. She presented a paradigm that I had and made sense given my experience, presented a new paradigm that was consistent with who I see myself to be and how I would like the world to be. And that made her recommendation of, nope, keep spending. Don't be profligate, but keep spending. She made that make complete sense.
Yeah. And it's, Samantha Stone and I, just before our talk, we were talking the same thing. It's like, should we cut back? It's like, people are, they're stressed and things. It's like, no, we should be out there. It's just that our messaging should be more thoughtful to the moment and to where people's minds are at now. So I think it's good. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your sharing your wisdom with us.
No, my pleasure.
We'll all get by. We'll be stronger because of all this.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, stay well, stay healthy out there in California.
And likewise on the left or the right coast.
The right coast. Exactly. All right. You take care, Bob.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.